Welcome back. Let's use our model of supply and demand to think about the effect of a shock on a market. So let's look at the market for bicycles, and let's assume that the price of gasoline increases. So how do we go about working through a problem like this? Well, we've got a model, and we've got a three-step process, so let's just put them to use. So what market are we looking at? So the market is the market for bicycles. And what's our event, or the shock to the market? We said, let's look at the price of gas increasing. So the price of gasoline increases. All right, how do we go about working through this problem? Well, we've got a three-step process. So the first step is just which curve is affected. Our second step is which direction. And then our third step was to draw and see what happens. All right, so we've got our three steps. Let's go ahead and set up our model. So we're looking at the market for bicycles, and we're thinking about price and quantity, and we've got a supply curve and a demand curve, and let's go ahead and mark in our initial equilibrium. So the point where the two curves cross, we'll call that P1 and Q1. You don't have to, you could call them other things, but putting some sort of subscript on them just helps us remember later, wait, where did we start and where did we end up? So we'll call them P1 and Q1. All right, now we're ready to roll. So the market for bicycles, the price of gasoline increases. Which curve is affected? Well, how do we figure that out? In a different video, we had buckets of shifters for which ones affect demand and which ones affect supply. So what were those buckets? So if we think about demand, this was a story about the number of buyers, or a change in the number of buyers, buyers' income. So buyers' income, the price of a related good, tastes and preferences, and buyers' expectations. Buyers' expectations. So those were our 5 buckets we had for demand. Now, depending on how you think about this, you could have a different number of buckets. The goal is just to help us sort of work through a list and say, is this event affecting demand or supply? So what were our buckets for supply? So our supply buckets, the first one was the number of sellers. The second one was input prices. The third one was production technology. Again, it's a change in all of these that affects supply, or a change in any of these buckets that affects demand. And then the last one was sellers' expectations. All right, so which curve? The price of gasoline increases. Well, how is that related to bicycles? It's not really the number of sellers. It's not really an input in the bicycles. It's not production technology around bicycles. So this probably isn't a story about supply. It's a story about a related good, right? Gasoline goes with vehicles, which are alternative transportation, alternative entertainment, cruising in a car versus going out for a bicycle ride. So this is going to be a story about the price of a related good. So which curve is affected? This is going to be demand. That's the hardest part. All right, which direction? So we know it's the demand curve that's going to shift. What's going to happen to the market for bicycles if the price of gasoline goes up? It's going to increase demand for bicycles. Right? People are going to want to buy more bicycles. So if they want to buy more, Which direction is that on our horizontal axis, the quantity axis? More is to the right. So demand is increasing and shifting to the right. So here's sort of a way you can remember that. Left is less. I don't have a good one for right is more, but left is less. So it's got to be, if there's an increase in demand, it's moving to the right. All right, our third step, we've got the hardest pieces out of the way. Draw it in and see what happens. All right, so demand is increasing, shifting to the right. So what happened? Well, more people are showing up at the bicycle store wanting to buy bicycles, so quantity is increasing. And if more people are showing up wanting to buy them, our result makes sense that prices increased as well. So here's the key to this. Work through your three-step process and see if these results we get make intuitive sense. All right, so our third step was draw and see. When we shifted demand to the right, what happened to quantity and price? Well, price increased and quantity increased as well. Hopefully you're getting a feel for how we can use our three-step process and our supply and demand model to look at the effect of a shock on a market. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.